Welcome to Think, React, Lead, bringing you insights and strategies for thinking as an executive, reacting like a soldier, and leading in all aspects of your life. Here's your host, executive coach and leadership speaker, Dom Faussette.
Welcome to the Think, React, Lead podcast, where you will be provided insights on thinking as an executive, reacting like a soldier, and leading in various aspects of your career and personal life. I am your host, Dom Faussette. The other day, I had the fortunate pleasure of being interviewed on a radio show by the name of Revenue Chat. This episode number 147 with Tony Durso, we talked about coaching and the importance of coaching and how coaching has helped me and how I became a coach and where the marketplace is kind of trending as it relates to coaches. Tony Durso has been around for some time and provides a lot of insight and value during this podcast. So again, this is Dom Faussette, but I want you to take a listen to this podcast and let me know what your thoughts are after you listen to it. Leave some comments. And again, I can be followed on Facebook, Dom Faussette, or Think React Lead. I can also be found on my website at www.thinkreactlead.com and of course, Instagram. Think, React, Lead, and Dom Faussette. Have a wonderful day and enjoy this listen, and we'll chat soon.
Revenue Chat episode 147. Hey guys, Tony Durso here, and I have to say thank you. Thanks a million downloads that is. Go to TonyDurso.com/donation. and read all about the exciting next adventure we have in store for you. That's TonyDurso.com/donation. And once again, thanks a million.
This is Revenue Chat Radio with your host, Tony Durso, interviewing successful entrepreneurs and giving you actionable advice and insights. Let's rev it up.
Welcome to this episode of Revenue Chat. I'm your host, Tony Durso. And hey, I'm going on television in the near future as Revenue Chat TV. I'll be broadcasting over many platforms such as Amazon, Apple, Roku, the Voice America TV network, and others. And my show format will inevitably change a little as I may ask guests to help solve current business and marketplace issues. Now, regardless of any adjustments, you continue to get experts in their field who share their knowledge with you, my Revenue Crew audience. And when it goes live, you'll see them on my mobile app at TonyDurso.com/mobile. Download that now and you'll see and hear my other weekly talk shows. Currently, Column 1 is The Spotlight, which focuses on high-profile celebrities who give great insight on their journey to success. You get good advice and information that you can use in your life and business. Column 2 has my Revenue Chat radio podcasts, such as this show which you're listening to now. When the TV show comes on, you'll catch it on this app. So please go ahead and download it at TonyDurso.com/mobile. Okay, today we set the stage for Revenue Chat with Dom Faussette, talking about creating vulnerable leaders. All right, Revenue Crew, let's rev it up. Get ready for Dom to tell us about creating vulnerable leaders. Here we go. For our Revenue Crew audience, here's some facts about Dom. He's a best-selling author, a leadership expert, an executive coach, a military veteran, a prior police officer, over 10 years in corporate leadership. He's the CEO of Think, Lead, React. Any one of those by themselves is incredible, Dom. That's a great list of accomplishments.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that.
And with everything you've done in your life, Dom, I'd love to know what made you get into the business world of coaching businesses?
It wasn't planned. It definitely wasn't planned. I actually jumped into the corporate world after leaving law enforcement and found a niche. Every company that I was recruited to or brought on board had me doing leadership development. I'm assuming a lot of that has to do with my military service and just my overall background. What I found as I was forced to speak to executives multiple times a week was there was this overarching, I'd say, concern, and there was a disconnect with many companies, with the executive staff to the support staff, which is the entry-level managers, and the same. And that disconnect was authenticity. Younger demographic coming into a different mindset of leaders in the workspace. So through going to different dinner parties, I'd find myself in these conversations that sound a lot like coaching. I've always been a professional speaker, not always, but for quite some time, I've been a professional speaker. So once I decided to become a certified coach, it just made sense. And I gained a lot of information from a handful of executives that I've managed to develop relationships with over the years. And slowly but surely, I really think it was, 2018, 2016, two executives asked if I would coach them. And of course, I said yes, more of a mentorship, if you will. And then from there, it just took off, one client at a time, word of mouth. And I never really planned on leaving the corporate world. In July of 2017, between speaking and coaching, I was blessed to put in a position to actually walk away.
That's a really good story, and I love the way how you've just sort of fallen into it. I did the same in just a little way, where I was in the corporate world, and I was asked in a way to have and start my own business doing exactly what I was doing. I just kind of fell into being an entrepreneur. It's very interesting how when we're good at something, the universe or events kind of steer us that way. And for you,
right,
it's quite a rocket ride. You've done so much. You have so many accomplishments. Really, really an honor to be here interviewing you. And I've got to really, I've written some books on leadership. I've done some work on leadership. I've got to ask, and I'm sure our Revenue Crew audience is wondering, our title today is Creating Vulnerable Leaders. So it begs the question, Dom, what's a vulnerable leader?
There's this I'd say thing in the corporate world that people talk about, and they call it authenticity. And at this point, granted, I just left the corporate world a few months ago, authenticity was not really authentic. People thought they were being authentic, but they weren't really being who they were. Going back to law enforcement, I was put in a position to take a lot of executives out on stretchers because of heart attacks. And when I got out of law enforcement, I came out of a dark, very, very dark past. And once I started to become comfortable with myself and then sharing some of my travels and things that I've done that brought me to where I was with my peers, it helped me to connect with people that I worked with. And the more I became comfortable with who I was, the more I found that I became vulnerable, and vulnerable in a good stance. For being a veteran, I always had people put on my teams that were veterans. And there's just certain things veterans go through that we can relate to each other, and we share portions of our lives that allow us to connect and it's almost like therapy. And I say veterans and first responders. And I found myself sharing some of the struggles that I had in the workplace as I dealt with PTSD. And then as different people in the workplace were finding out that I was prior law enforcement, prior military, they started coming to me with their problems because they felt comfortable with me because we had shared experiences. And it's one of those things when you jump into leadership, there's this, I say, struggle for positioning. And I never really paid it any mind. And this is hindsight. I found peers wondering, how do you connect with all of these teams that you're connecting with? And my response was, I'm just comfortable with who I am. I share the things I share the ugly, if you will. And I think vulnerable leadership allows an individual who's, I think leadership is influence, it's not positional. It allows a person who's influential to be able to share who they are in the workplace and be that same person at home, at the grocery store, because there's nothing like meeting with your executive or running into your executive at a baseball game, and they're nothing like the person that they are at work. And I think if as I've seen, there's a disconnect and lack of balance when you try to be somebody that you're not at work, or try to be a separate person at work than you are at home. Eventually that catches up to you. And what I found is if we're just vulnerable with our staff, because the staff is the working force, without a team, no leader has a job. And we're able to share insights with them that we've gained in our personal lives. In my opinion and in my experience, it's allowed me to develop almost a subculture within a corporate culture, because they know, and I hate to use the phrase know, like, and trust, but they actually trust my character.
That's very interesting there, Dom. In the corporate world, I have met so many people and executives that I would never know that they've smiled or had a friendly side until I saw them outside of work. And I've always thought, well, that's just how it is in the corporate world. There's two people, there's business and then there's friends. And it's also been something I've noticed, just there's these, it's almost a dichotomy. And it's very, very interesting what you say about the authenticity and how at the baseball game you'll meet someone and they're a different person. They're really being themselves. And I want to chat more about that, but I wanted to make one other comment on something you said earlier. I want to make sure I understood it as well as the Revenue Crew audience. You talked about in your prior law enforcement days being in a dark side, and I would like to know, is that because of the particular type of duty or where you worked, or it was heavy, or it was the law enforcement role in and perhaps maybe you could tell us what city or state you worked in. I'd just like to know more about that and the effect that had on you, which then led to what you're doing now.
Oh, definitely. I was a police officer in Jackson, Mississippi, and getting shot at is not fun. In the environment I was in, it was very, I'd say it was rough. And drugs kind of ran the streets. So with drugs comes a certain element of life or lack thereof. And you just see a lot of things that I don't think a person is you're never prepared to see these things, but they're etched in your mind for life. So when you see death, and it's almost on a weekly basis, it changes who you are as a person. And naturally, you have to thicken your skin emotionally just so you can make it day in and day out. So fast forward, and I jump into the corporate world. When I have an employee, which has happened, come to me and tell me that if she goes home late, her spouse takes a mini blowtorch to her inner thigh, and that's been happening for 6 months. Had she not known my background or known some of the things I've dealt with as it relates to maybe PTSD, she would not have felt comfortable coming to me, and that would have continued to go on. But I was able to kind of take action, and she was able to get some help. But there's many conversations, and I think that I've heard like that. But as leaders, positional leaders, I think we forget that there's an element of society that deals with things and comes into work with a fake smile. You know, law enforcement, first responders have a job, and they respond to homes of our employees, and our employees come to work. Well, we've all seen hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. And then we pass each other and continue moving, as opposed to just being a leader, person of influence, and saying, hey, how are you really doing? And if that person's comfortable with you, and you could literally be saving somebody's life. And I feel that that's my responsibility. Or when I was in the corporate world, that was a good team runs good numbers, but a great team doesn't doesn't feel obligated to run good numbers. They feel almost obligated to you because you care about them. And believe it or not, there's so many employees that have nobody in their life that cares about them, or at least they think that. So as leaders, we could be potentially the only person that shows interest in their world.
Very astounding there. And I want to thank you for sharing that information about your prior law enforcement days. Now I get it. I get the whole thing, and I do appreciate you letting me know about that and letting us know about that. Now, from there, in the corporate world, you have also been helped by coaching. Is that what started first that then led you to coach others? You
know what? I didn't get a coach until after I had a therapist. When I first got back from law enforcement, like I said, I got a therapist, and I didn't want to do it, but it was strongly suggested just to kind of, I'd say, normalize me back into the civilian world, which I'm glad I did it. And I met a guy who was a chief in the military, in the Air Force, Chief Master Sergeant, and he was my mentor. And he had a coach, and he strongly suggested, he said, get a coach. Specific to what it is you want to do. So I ended up getting one coach, and that relationship lasted 6 months, and I got another coach. And what I found was the growth in my world was exponential. Like I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for coaching. So I'm a firm believer in coaching. So when I got into coaching myself with Think, React, Lead, it wasn't an unfamiliar space for me.
I got you. Thank you for explaining that. Very, very important. And I mentor others, and I am mentored as well. And I totally understand both sides. And I must say, you as an individual in the Revenue Crew audience, anyone, you can go much, much further up the ladder, much, much further up into your goal and what you want to achieve in life by having someone be a mentor or a coach and help you. It's the way to fast track. You could spend years and years and years figuring out something on your own or not, or you could have someone just help you along very, very expeditiously. So I cannot say enough about getting a good coach. And for those in business, of which we have a large preponderance of the audience here in our Revenue Crew audience, check out what Dom has. He has some great videos. He's got some great insights. And the website name is very cool. It's 3 words. It's thinkreactlead.com. Thinkreactlead.com. And Dom Faussette has some great information there on leadership. I highly recommend you guys check that out. Is it true that a majority of new businesses fail? Check this out. In order to have a successful growing business, there are some vital points that you must know. You must have worked them out thoroughly. They must be synchronized with each other, and all employees, consultants, and companies that you depend on must know these items and be in agreement with them if your new business is to meet with a high percentage of success. Get it free. The Vision Map. Beat the odds for business success at TonyDURSO.com/vision. Learn how to establish your vision, purpose, long-term objective, and master plan, including strategic and tactical planning. Get the Vision Map. Beat the odds for business success at TonyDURSO.com/vision. VISION. Hey guys, if you sometimes wonder how to get funding for your startup or even to keep your small business rolling, I know this scene. And I've got a great answer. Cabbage. No, not the food, but the money. That's right, money. Look it up. Yes, Cabbage, with a K, has the answer. Cabbage helps small business owners access simple and flexible funding right away without the headaches that come with applying for a traditional loan. And you can apply now online or from your phone by securely linking your business information to get an automatic decision. We all like automatic, right? Once you're approved, you choose when to use your funds and how much to take. You only have to pay for the funds you actually use. I like that. Visit cabbage.com/revenue chat. There's no cost to apply or set up your line of credit. As a Revenue Chat listener, when you qualify for funding, you'll get a $50 Visa gift card you can use anywhere, even if you want to buy some of my books. Okay, just kidding. Well, kind of. That's Cabbage with a K. KABBAGE.com/revenue chat. You'll remember that K, right? Cabbage.com/revenue chat. Hey guys, Tony D'Urso here, and I have to say thank you. Thanks a million. A million downloads, that is. Go to TonyDurso.com/donation and read all about the exciting next adventure we have in store for you. That's TonyDurso.com/donation. And once again, thanks a million. And we're back with Dom Faussette, who tells us about creating vulnerable leaders. And now we want to go into a little bit more. I understand your varied career, and somehow when you've gotten out of law enforcement, was there a goal that you wanted to achieve? Was there some drive, or has that now been changed? Let's talk about purpose and what makes you do what you do now.
You know, when I got out of law enforcement, there was a lot of, I'd say, suppressed memories. So when I got out of law enforcement, it was because I was put in a position where I almost had to take a person's life on duty in front of his kids. And I never wanted to be in that position again. So I put my 2 weeks notice in and I left. I've built relationships all my life. That's just something that I've been able to do. So through nepotism, I was able to land a job, a decent sales job at a bank. And from there, when I first jumped into the corporate world, I had an annual amount that I just wanted to hit. And I didn't care what company, what the job was. I just knew that I didn't want to work outside. I didn't want to carry a gun, and I wanted to speak to people. So I hit that number, and I ended up moving from one company. I would get recruited because I would always update my information on all the platforms, Career Builder, etc., Indeed.com. And as I was promoting, I kind of looked back. I took a deep breath one day and I looked back and I realized that I was leading people that had doctorates. I was leading people that had maybe multiple masters, and I only had a high school education. And I'm looking at a lot of the requirements for the roles I was in, and I didn't meet most of the requirements. But what I was able to do was position myself as a person of influence starting at the interview. And I really think my law enforcement background, before I meet somebody, I typically do some research on them. And I think people miss that part when they go in for a job, and they're very, I say, stoic in the interview process, and they're very maybe stuffy at times. So my ability to connect with people, which in law enforcement, it's a life skill set, but in the corporate world, it's just something that's good to have. I realized that, you know what, I can move up as fast as I want. I don't have to follow any track. So every 2 years I'd change banks. And then I just got to a point where this was just too easy. I was educating people how to do this. And the whole speaking and coaching thing, honestly, it happened because I joined a Toastmasters club and I won a speaking contest. And through that speaking contest, I had to tell a story over and over and over again. And that story was of me potentially killing a guy. And what I did for entertainment, hindsight, I realized it was actually therapy for myself. And I started getting paid to speak. Somebody one day gave me $2,000 to speak, and that was really my first paid speaking gig. And I said, well, you know what? If I can make $2,000 to speak for an hour and a half, where else can I speak? I thought everybody did this. I didn't think anything I did was special. I thought this was just normal. You find a job, you promote, you make a lot of money, and then you speak. I thought everybody did that because I came from a family of speakers. So I literally started speaking more, and then I wanted to match my income with speaking, and that became pretty easy. So once I got serious, I didn't get serious about speaking and coaching until about a year and a half ago. I realized that, okay, there's a whole marketing strategy to this. Let me knock out a book. Let me knock out a podcast. Let me do all the things that the who's who in the industry does. And as I did that, I got to a point where I was doing so much and the money was coming in, and I didn't have the luxury of, as crazy as it sounds, I didn't have the luxury of working for somebody else. I really hadn't planned on stepping into the entrepreneur world until maybe 2020 at the earliest.
Very cool on that. Totally get you on that. And for our Revenue Crew audience, I wanted to point out one thing to make sure that we have this. Dom has actually achieved a number of goals that he has set out to achieve. For example, he's raced a dream bike, Ducati, married to the woman of his dreams, as well as a great-looking family, and you've been very, very successful business after business. I'd like to know, do you have some advice or takeaways or information you could give us in terms of when we have a dream or something important to accomplish it? You make it look easy, and you talk about that. There's a whole world inside, but perhaps you could enlighten us a little bit more on that.
If you follow your passion, for me, it's what's that thing that wakes you up at 2:17 in the morning? Because it's never a normal, convenient time. But that thing that excites you, and it may not be your job, and that's okay. I think everybody has an entrepreneur spirit in them, whether they act on it or not. That's completely up to them. I'm a firm believer in not walking away from your corporate job to follow your dreams until you've maximized all of your resources. So before I left, I had a podcast. Before I left, I had a cachet of coaching clients. Before I left my corporate job, I had written a book. I won a couple speaking contests. And it just kind of one day hit me that I couldn't do both. We live in a world where people, they leave their job when they're on the bottom, and they're leaving out of emotions. I would suggest that if you don't like your job, find a job or company that you like, work there while you're following your dream towards entrepreneurship or whatever it may be. Because whatever it is you don't like about your boss, or whatever it is that you don't like about your company that's causing you to say, I would do better on my own, that thing needs to be rectified, because you're going to find somebody that matches that person that you dislike, or matches whatever that feeling is that causes disdain that you have about the company you work for. You'll end up working with somebody. And in my experience, you work for more people as an entrepreneur than you do when you're actually working for a corporation. And whatever that one thing is that you don't do well at your corporate place now, mine was Excel spreadsheets. Like I'm horrible at them. Increase that skill set just a smidge, or find a virtual assistant that can do that for you. But understand what it is that you're going to do for the next, I'm 40, so for the next, say, 30, 40 years of your life that you're okay doing for free. And as it relates to coaching, I'm huge on diversity in action and diversity in thought and association. Find a coach that doesn't look, act, talk, sound, believe like you. For example, I typically wouldn't hire a coach that's a veteran, that's a black male, because most veteran black males, we have shared experiences. My last coach was an Australian woman with no military experience, and I learned more from her than I did any other coaches. Most people, they stay in their comfort zone, and they find coaches that look, act, sound, act like them. And that's not going to benefit you, because the results that you're getting that you're not happy with, you're getting them based off of old knowledge that you received years ago. It's your life experience. So I believe in finding a coach that doesn't match your life experience, because you're going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to take you out of your comfort zone.
That's very wise. Absolutely very wise. You don't want someone that you think looks and sounds like you, or is in your type of genre or area, right, or expertise. So you can learn more. You can learn more from others. What would be your ideal type of business or client that you work on, that you help? And perhaps you could share some success stories with us.
My ideal client is that individual who's a W-2 employee and wants to start a business, and they're typically over the age of 35. The reason for that is typically 35 and above. They typically have had some success in their role, but they're very uncomfortable with social media. And I don't care what industry anyone is in. The value that I have been given, or that's been added to me by way of video, has grown my business. I'm traveling and speaking because people find my videos. I use this analogy. If I had a 5-minute slot on Fox News to give away, there's not a person out there that would say no, that's running a business. Everyone would say yes. So if you would say yes to a 5-minute slot on Fox, why wouldn't you say yes to a 5-minute video on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, or in this case now LinkedIn, because they have the videos? Getting people comfortable, being able to have them take their skill sets from their corporate world, build a business on their own is such a reward. I have a client right now, and she's a truck driver for DHL, if I'm not mistaken. And she reached out to me one day, and we were chatting back and forth on Instagram Messenger. Long story short, she's just purchased her 3rd truck, and she has her own company. And all of this started through coaching. I have another client who is, we both race motor. So I don't race. I take my bike to the track, but we both ride motorcycles, and he's done very well for himself, but he's not satisfied. He's not fulfilled. So he started what originally was a nonprofit. He and I started talking, started using social media, increased his following, and realized that he has a skill set that's very unique. And he's grown his business. And we had a conversation yesterday. He's like, Don, when do I leave? Because I'm up at midnight. I'm at work at 5 a.m. I can't even keep up with the money that's coming in. I said, sir, that's a wonderful problem to have. So I would say take full advantage of social media, and don't pick one platform to use and use that to your max capacity, and then pick another platform, and eventually you get good. But don't be uncomfortable with picking up your phone and doing a video that's going to add value to what your potential client is, or your client avatar would be.
Very wise words, and I thank you so much for sharing that. Videos is absolutely a great way to go, and social media there's nothing like it. You can connect so fast. People that would never even be known about in the world are now all over because of social media. It's a great thing, and there's room for everyone because everyone has a different niche, and there's multiple types of social media. So we're nowhere near the maximum on that. Very, very wise words. Well, thank you, Dom. Thank you very much. Creating vulnerable leaders. Now, did we discuss that? Did we take that apart? What's our ideal leader let's talk about that. What is our ideal leader? What would we like from that?
The ideal leader is somebody who's comfortable in their own skin. It's somebody that can come to work, and I'll use this for example. The last team I had, I came to work, and my wife and I got into a minute spat. Nothing crazy. But when I got to work, I told my team after the meeting, I said, look, I'm 15 minutes away from my home. I forgot to apologize to my wife. I will be right back. Can you guys watch the floor? We're good. They said, they gave me this weird, perplexed look and said, yeah, why not? I went home, came back. And when I got back, 3 of my employees said, I didn't know we were allowed to do that. And my response to them was, why wouldn't you do that? I'm leading you, but you're a grown person. If you have to go home to rectify something and you've got coverage, and you're handling your business on the floor, why wouldn't you go home and make right with your spouse? Because as we all know, if you're not happy at home, it's going to negatively impact the business, the bottom line. And when I did that, that word kind of spread. And it's I think we get so caught up in doing things the way they've always been done that we lack the emotion, human portion of it. Why would anybody want to be at work thinking that their spouse is upset with them because they, as we guys do, we, maybe didn't apologize because our pride got in the way. And that in that moment, I connected with my team on a level that I didn't, it never even crossed my mind, but it was such a wonderful opportunity for them to see me as a person. And I think vulnerable leaders have the potential to be even more vulnerable, or authentic in their approach and be comfortable with making decisions, because any decisions that you make, good or bad, aren't going to stop the world from turning. And if you don't know, tell your team, you know what, I don't know, but let's work together and figure this out. And I'm going to tell you why I don't know.
Dom, you've got so much work ahead of you. There's so much room on just that one area that it's just mind-boggling. I come from a corporate environment where you're not allowed to do something other than your job. And there was you're just not allowed. It's unheard of. Even going to go get a coffee sometimes, if it's across the street at a coffee shop, you can't do that unless it's an established break time or a lunch or a meal break time. I was once taken into HR for standing there for probably 30 seconds talking to an employee about something that was not work related. I come from that culture. Unfortunately, that is the culture. So I can understand why your employees would be aghast at the fact that you took a break, an unauthorized break, so to speak, to go take care of something. But it was so important because that sets the stage for your productivity. So it's very, very interesting. I think there's a lot of ground for improvement there in our corporate environment with something like that.
Totally agree.
We've come around here and time has caught up with us, Dom. Once again, we talked about creating vulnerable leaders. Really, really good talk here. Love the insight and the advice that you've given us. And again, website is thinkreactlead.com. Thank you very much, Dom. It was great to have you.
Likewise, sir. Thank you for being on your show. Have a wonderful day.
Great. And all right. Thank you, everyone. And stay tuned to our next show on Revenue Chat. If you like this interview with Dom, would you kindly give me a review on iTunes? It's the purple icon on your Apple device. A sentence or two is just fine. Thanks in advance. And our next episode is with Mitch Russo talking about creating accountability partnerships. Some facts about Mitch: he's the author of the #1 bestseller, The Invisible Organization, How Ingenious CEOs Are Creating Thriving Virtual Companies. He was co-founder of TimeSlips Corp., which grew to become the largest time-tracking software company in the world before it was sold in 1998. He's the past president of Business Breakthroughs with Chet Holmes and Tony Robbins, with nearly 300 people and about 25 million in sales. And he's now rocking it at resultsbreakthrough.com, helping to create accountability partnerships. Mitch talks about creating accountability partnerships on the next episode of Revenue Chat.
You've been listening to Think, React, Lead. To connect with your authentic purpose, contact Dom at www.thinkreactlead.com.